going to cut right to the chase. How many of you people have a problem? All right. Well, about half of you didn't understand that question, did you? Let me rephrase that. I used a bad word, a terrible word. Let me use a word for this millennium. How many of you don't have a problem, but you experience some form of stress? How many of you have stress in your life? Got a little stress? Okay, got most of the hands up, but not all of them. So let's rephrase this one more time. How many of you don't have stress, but you are a carrier? Everybody, put your fingers right here. Do this. Put them right here. All right, everybody do that. All right, how many of you have a pulse? Folks, I need all the hands up here, I do. I need a live audience. If you have a pulse, guess what you also have? Stress. Somebody over here said heart, so apparently we have a biology student over here. If you have a pulse, you have stress. We're going to de-stress here a little bit this morning, and I know what one of your stresses is right now. Your biggest stress in your business is getting new and maintaining existing customers. We make the mistake of thinking that if they're happy, they're always going to be happy. Or if we've lost them, we can never get them back. It's a huge mistake. Customer satisfaction levels are not static. They are dynamic. They move all the time. And I've been using a term that I have to pause when I say it. I say customer satisfaction. Because that's not the game anymore. It's not. It is not the game anymore. We used to think you were either satisfied or unsatisfied. And you don't want unsatisfied, so I hope you're satisfied. It's a different game now. You don't want unsatisfied, that's obvious. You don't even want satisfied anymore. What you want is a third category of supreme client satisfaction or client relationship, and that is you've got them into a category where they are known as advocates. They just don't tell you what a great job and what a great company you have. They tell other people about it. You don't want satisfied. You don't want unsatisfied. You want advocates. Are you there? You will be if you understand a couple of major principles that drive this. And there's a million principles that drive customer care. I know that. But here's the two that are going to drive your relationship more than anything else. Number one is an issue called credibility. Credibility. The truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. You don't hide information. You don't try to shield information. If you don't know, you don't guess. Credibility. If I told you airlines were on time 80% of the time, 80% of the time they were on time. Is that a true or false statement? It was false. That's what we feel. Even with the huge cancellations that we've seen in the last 2 years because of safety situations where an airline will cancel 1,000 flights in a day, even with those numbers, they're still on time. 80% of the time. That's that 15-minute window. 80% of the time. Folks, that's still a B. And yet we all think airlines have an awful reputation because why? They've lied to us, right? And at one time or another when you've been traveling, they have lied to you. And I'm not speaking as a novice flyer. I've been flying my whole life. Everything about it bugs me now. Everything. Not the safety issues. We're better at that. What bugs me now is the people that are flying that apparently have been living in a cave. Because I'm always behind that guy. You know the guy with the belt buckle the size of a hubcap? From when he won the 6th grade goat tying rodeo or whatever it was. So he holds up the line. The guy with enough change in his pocket he could solve the monetary crisis of a third world country. I'm behind that guy. I got behind a kid the other day. Hate to use the word kid because that implies a generational difference, but I have a generational difference. This kid had taken the piercing thing, just a bit too far. His idol obviously was Dennis Rodman, and he held up the line. It was just one line. He had to de-pierce. He just had metal. It looked like he'd been in a serious fishing lure accident, actually. Like a tackle box just boom, blew up in his face. I watched him remove the stud. No, that's wrong. The 7/16 bolt from his tongue. Couldn't let that one go. Mouthy jerk, right? Yeah. So I looked at him and I said, dude. Just trying to connect, I said, why? Why would you do that? This is what he said. Because it was an opportunity for free expression. Well, actually, what he really said was, so I'm guessing a little bit. I had to connect the dots on that one. Boy, he had something that I'd never seen before, and I'd like to think I've seen a little. He had his ear pierced. Got no problem with that. That's an accessory. He had also his nose pierced, and I've seen that. Wow, seems painful, but connecting the two. He had a chain. He had a chain. He had a chain connecting. That is not safe. That is not safe. Think about it from a health standpoint. A runny nose, ear infection. Bang! You couldn't stop it. You just couldn't. I'm not talking about all that. I'm not talking about all that. I'm talking about how airlines will lie to us. And that's why they have no credibility. I'm in Indianapolis the other day, and I'm trying to get to Kansas City, and I'm connecting through Chicago. And that's a simple little thing to do. It's not that hard. And I'm on this airline, and I'm not going to tell you what airline that is because that's not important. And I don't want to embarrass them. And I don't want you to stop flying because of this little story. But I do believe, I do think that this airline needs to be more united in the way they look at customer service. Simple flight, connecting through Chicago. 7 o'clock departure. I'm going to be back in Kansas City pretty quick. About 10 till 7, they gave those words that every experienced traveler just frets over and fears over and hates to hear. Ladies and gentlemen, we got a little brief delay, a little 10-minute delay, just a 10-minute delay in our departure because we're cleaning up some paperwork. A little 10-minute delay. Do not leave the boarding area. We're going to be boarding shortly. We just have a 10-minute delay in boarding, so please stay close, and we're going to be boarding in just about 10 minutes late is all. Well, of course, that 10-minute late statement got repeated about 20 times because they were waiting on some paperwork, cleaning up some paperwork from a little mechanical issue. They kept telling us. We finally got on the plane and we pulled away from the jetway like that far, that much, which apparently means they have departed. When you're this far from the jetway, it's like a huge chasm that no one can cross. But they've departed. And we sat on the tarmac for an hour, and finally they came back over the intercom system and said, ladies and gentlemen, we apologize, but we're going to deplane and we're going to have to cancel this flight because the part never arrived from Cleveland. Where was the 10-minute delay? Never. It was never going to be a 10-minute delay. They didn't even have the part there. It wasn't going to be a 10-minute delay unless they perfected that beam me up Scotty technology. It wasn't going to happen. And they've been lying to us all that while. Now we're all trying to figure out some way to get home. Everybody cattle runs back to the gate. I finally get on a flight that gets me connecting through Chicago. And I get to Chicago. We're coming in for the landing. And I'm a little nervous. I'm going to make my connection. But the flight attendant says, ladies and gentlemen, if you have a tight connection, do not worry. Because we have alerted the gates that we're on approach and we'll be landing. And if you have a close connection, we've alerted the gates and they'll be holding the plane for you. Well, I still didn't believe him, and so I bolted to the front and I trampled a couple of little old ladies, but hey, I'm a jerk. And so I get to the front. I'm the first person off of the plane. I ran out of the jetway. The door opened. I looked across the aisle. Oh! My connecting gate is across the aisle. At O'Hare? That's impossible. You can't do that. You've been through O'Hare, you know. You always got to go through the disco tunnel, don't you? I missed the disco tunnel. I couldn't, but my gate's right there, so I bolted over there, and just as I got feet away from that gate, she shut the door to the jetway, and she said, this plane has completed the boarding process. I said, no, it hasn't. You know how I know? Because I'm not on it. And I'm supposed to be on that plane. She says, well, no, we have completed the boarding process. There's a 10-minute rule, and you've not made the 10-minute rule. And I said, well, the plane's still there. It hasn't even pulled that far away from the jetway, so I know it's not departed. It's right there. And I said, they even told us on the plane that they were going to alert the gates. She said, there is no way anybody on a plane can ever alert any gate that they are arriving. Who's lying? One of you somewhere. I mean, they're the lying on the plane or you're lying now, but somebody's lying. Well, you know, this is at the point in the time when I realized why we really do have security at airports. I run back to the customer service counter. There's a misnomer. As we approached, 40, 50 of us in mass, there were two little girls, and I know it wasn't their fault, but they saw us passengers heading their way, and honestly, true story, they looked at each other and went, it's time for break. and they left. So we all stood in line, and we waited, and they came back, and I was the first person in line, and I gave them my ticket, and I said, I'm trying to get to Kansas City. Wow, it's been quite a trip so far, and it's really not that hard, now I'm here in Chicago. And she looked at my ticket, and she went, oh. You know what that is? I said, yeah, it's a ticket. She said, no, it's not just a ticket. So you cashed in some miles for this trip. That's a frequent flyer ticket. And there's only so many seats left on the planes, and there's no seat left on the plane that you want to get on to use your ticket. I said, you know how I got that ticket? Because I flew you yahoos about 100,000 miles last year. Wow. I thought it was a reward, not a penalty. She said, the best we can do, we can put you on a flight about 5 o'clock this afternoon. You're kidding me. So she puts me on the flight, and so I leave. Now I've got nothing to do. I'm killing time. I go into the gift shop, you know, to buy some bargains. Wow. Bought a package of gum for $39.95. They also had something else that was weird. They had a flight insurance. You ever checked out flight insurance? I'd never done that. $29.95 for like $1 billion policy, but when you break it down, it's a quarter for $5,000. A quarter buys you $5,000 worth of flight insurance. I'm thinking this is a good deal. I bought a bunch of flight insurance. And right next to it, they had one of those old style weight machines where you put in your nickel and also showed your horoscope. And so I put in my nickel, and it said, an investment you have just made is about to pay off. Gotta be coincidence, right? And so it's about time. So I'm heading to my gate, and I run down to my gate, and you know, I look at my ticket, and wow, I'm going to gate 13. That seems not a good thing. And my flight is 50-50, flight 50-50. That doesn't seem good either, for some reason. And so, but I get there, and I said, hey, here's my ticket. And the gal freaked me out because she looked at my ticket, and she went, you know what that is? Yeah, it's a frequent flyer ticket. She goes, yes, there's no seats on this plane for frequent flyer miles. And I said, she put me on that plane. No, she put you on standby. And there's no seats left on this plane. I said, you know, let me ask a question. If the President of the United States was here right now, at this moment, and he needed to be on that plane to get to Kansas City, would you find a seat for him on that plane? She said, well, of course we would. And I said, well, I know he's not here, so give me his seat. Give it to me, now. I got home 10:45 that night. I left Indianapolis. I got to the airport at 6 in the morning. I could have walked home. I could have come home by crippled pack mule. And when I got home, I sat down, and I very carefully wrote a letter, cautiously, keeping my emotions in check. Okay, I'm lying there. I wrote the letter. And this is what I found out, 47 times. In the course of that day, I was specifically told 47 times a lie. Maybe not a complete bold-faced lie, but at least something that led me down the wrong path, made me believe something that really didn't exist. 47 times. Folks, the reason airlines have got such an awful reputation, it's not because they actually have a pretty decent record. When you look at safety and getting people there and on time, if you look at the whole thing, it's not bad. But everybody has a horror story about it because at one time or another they've been lied to. Now, remember I told you that a dissatisfied customer tells about 8 to 10 other people? I'm kind of beefing up the average a little bit. Credibility is at the top of the list, but there's one final thing that I got to leave you with. Don't ever forget the experience that you create. I'm not going to pass along to you a piece of information that I learned at college. This cost about $50,000. I learned some really cool party games. that I can't share with you. But this is the one thing I learned. It's called the ABCs of human behavior. Antecedent, behavior, consequence. ABC. Antecedent, behavior, consequence. It's the pattern of all human behavior. Antecedent precedes a behavior. It's a command, a request, whatever, a promise, a warranty. It's something that gets a behavior to occur. Then there's a behavior that occurs and there's a consequence after it. For years, this is what we taught, that if you wanted a behavior to occur, make a better antecedent, promise more, close the deal, sell better. Antecedent causes behavior, right? Wrong. Causes it once. After that, the consequence is what causes the behavior. Layman terms. I'm a kid. I come home from school. I'm 13 years old. Run up the lane, plop on the couch, watch Leave It to Beaver. My mother would walk in and say, "Mark, go mow the yard." What is that statement, Mark, go mow the yard? That is an antecedent. It precedes the desired behavior. What was my behavior? It wasn't the desired behavior. I stayed and laid there right on the couch. Why? Because I know there was no ill consequence of not mowing the yard. However, if my father came in and said, "Mark, go mow the yard," exactly the same antecedent, the same exact words, what was my behavior then? Because I knew the consequence. What caused that behavior? Folks, we spend a lot of time on the antecedent, and I'm not saying that promises and promotions and sales tactics and sales pitches are wrong. They're important. But if you want a behavior to reoccur time and time again, if you want that relationship to continue, you got to make sure the consequence is that way. I'll be up front with you. There's a lot of things I don't know a lot about, but at the top of the list of what I don't know about is cars. Never have. My brother was the gearhead. He fixed everything. I did nothing. To this day, it's cost me a lot of money. The other day, I had my car in the dealership. I had to pay $37 for blinker fluid. Wow, that seemed wrong. Is that wrong? Really wrong. I drive a Kia. I don't care. Cars aren't important to me. Somebody says, why do you drive a Kia? Well, I bought it because the guy said this thing would stop on a dime. You know why it'll stop on a dime? It can't get over the dime. So the car I know where the cigarette lighter and the heater, same thing. You ever turn on the radio to a car and it slowed down? That's my car. Okay, I'm kidding. I don't drive a Kia. I'm trying to make a point. I know nothing about cars. So I take my car into the dealership, and I knew I'd been ripped off by the dealership time and time again, and I knew they knew I knew nothing. And they was always charging me for stuff. And so I went in there, I said, I got a little noise in my muffler. I'm getting an oil change. Can you check it out? He came back and said, it's going to be $700 to fix that. What? It's just a little, it can't be. Oh, you got to replace this and that, and that's connected to that, and that's $700. Well, I don't have time for it. I drive out of there frustrated. I call a buddy. $700 to fix this. Guy says, well, you need to take it to Phil. Who is Phil? Well, you just started a little auto body shop and auto mechanic shop just right in your hometown. He says, right down the road from you. Little two-bay shop. He says, but I took my stuff there the other day, a couple car, a truck. Unbelievable. Great guy. Reasonable. I got nothing to lose. I pull in there. I've just been to the dealership. I walked in and Phil, you got it. I can't describe him exactly. He's a good old boy. He's a good old boy. He's a big old boy. Really big old boy. He does not wear pants big enough for his big old behind. In fact, your first instinct is, a plumber? But I walked in and Phil, he sees me. I see him and I said, Phil, I think I got a problem. I'm not sure what it is. Can you check out my muffler, I think? Exhaust something. Yeah, we got a bay open. Let's put her up there in the rack and let's take a peek. So he put it up on the rack and he came in just a second later and drugged me out and he said, that's your problem right there. It's that deal, boy. Check out that deal. Oh, yeah. Boy, that's a bad deal, Phil. What deal is that? He said, bad deal right there. And then he ripped off some term I didn't know. It's a bipolar deoxygenate, flipping resonator or something. I don't know. He says, that's it right there. You've got to replace that. I said, that deal. That one little thing. Yeah. I said, well, Phil, what's that going to cost me? Well, you got your two options here. You can go with the standard replacement. That's going to be about $36. But that nice glass pack's going to be $39. It's your call. I said, Phil, Let's light this candle. We're going to go all the way. Who's my mechanic now? Phil. You know why? Experience. He created a favorable experience for me. There's a lot of things that are important to anybody's experience with, regardless of the business or the issue. With cars and me, it's something called trust. I know I can trust Phil. How many thousands of dollars has it meant to Phil over the course of time because he provided the E for me, the experience. He provided that trust. I should also tell you, I hinted earlier, I have 2 daughters. Phil also does body work. My insurance premium looks like a ransom note, okay? What kind of experience do you create, folks?